Hi everyone, glad to see you back on the channel. For decades, the aircraft carrier has been the ultimate symbol of military power. When a carrier strike group appears near a coastline, it sends a clear message that a nation can project force anywhere on the planet. These massive, floating air bases have dominated the oceans since World War II, shaping wars, alliances, and global politics. But today, a serious question is being asked by military experts around the world. Is the aircraft carrier already obsolete, or are we misunderstanding its real role in modern warfare? At first glance, the aircraft carrier still looks unstoppable. It carries dozens of advanced fighter jets, early warning aircraft, helicopters, and support systems. It moves with a protective screen of destroyers, cruisers, submarines, and supply ships. It is supported by satellites, intelligence networks, and global logistics. On paper, this seems like an unmatched concentration of power. Yet warfare is not decided on paper. It is decided by technology, economics, and changing strategies. One of the biggest arguments against aircraft carriers today is their extreme cost. Modern carriers cost billions of dollars to build. That figure does not include the aircraft, the escort ships, or decades of maintenance. Operating a single carrier strike group can cost millions every day. For that same amount of money, a country could build hundreds or even thousands of missiles, drones, submarines, or cyber warfare systems. This raises an uncomfortable question. Is concentrating so much value into one platform still a smart idea? Another issue is vulnerability. During the Cold War, carriers were threatened mainly by submarines and bombers. Today, the threat environment is far more complex. Hypersonic missiles can travel at extreme speeds and maneuver unpredictably. Long-range anti-ship ballistic missiles are designed specifically to target carriers. Swarms of drones can overwhelm defenses. Advanced submarines are quieter than ever. Even space-based systems can track carrier movements across the oceans. The carrier, once hard to find and harder to hit, is becoming increasingly visible. China's development of anti-ship ballistic missiles has played a major role in this debate. These weapons are often described as carrier killers. They are designed to strike moving targets at sea from long distances. Combined with satellites, over-the-horizon radars, and unmanned systems, these missiles challenge the traditional assumption that carriers can operate safely at standoff ranges. If a carrier must stay far from the battlefield to survive, critics argue that its usefulness is reduced. Drones represent another major shift. In past wars, carriers were essential because they could launch manned aircraft without relying on foreign bases. Today, long-range drones can be launched from land, submarines, or smaller ships. They can stay in the air for many hours, gather intelligence, and even carry weapons. As drone technology improves, the unique advantage of carriers begins to look less unique. Some analysts argue that the future belongs to distributed forces rather than large, centralized platforms. There is also the issue of risk. Losing an aircraft carrier would be a strategic and psychological disaster. Thousands of sailors could be lost, and the political impact would be enormous. This creates pressure on commanders to avoid putting carriers in truly dangerous situations. If a weapon system is so valuable that leaders hesitate to use it aggressively, its deterrent value may be weaker than it appears. An unused weapon does not shape the battlefield. However, declaring the aircraft carrier obsolete may be too simple. History shows that powerful weapons are often declared outdated long before they actually disappear. Battleships were said to be obsolete before World War II, yet they still played major roles. Tanks have been declared obsolete many times, yet they remain essential on land. The same pattern may apply to carriers. They are changing, not vanishing. Supporters of aircraft carriers argue that no other platform offers the same flexibility. A carrier does not need permission from another country to operate. It can move closer or farther away as the situation demands. It can conduct air strikes, defensive patrols, humanitarian missions, and disaster relief. In peacetime, carriers are tools of diplomacy. In wartime, they can shift roles quickly. This adaptability is hard to replace. Another important point is that carriers rarely operate alone. They are part of a larger system. Missile defenses, electronic warfare, decoys, cyber capabilities, and intelligence assets all work together to protect the carrier. Modern navies invest heavily in layered defense systems. While no defense is perfect, the idea that a single missile can easily destroy a carrier oversimplifies reality. Warfare is a contest of measures and countermeasures. Training and experience also matter. Navies that operate carriers have decades of operational knowledge. They understand how to manage air operations, logistics, and coordination on a massive scale. Replacing carriers with entirely new concepts would require enormous changes in doctrine, training, and command structures. This is not something that can happen overnight. Military institutions tend to evolve gradually, not suddenly. There is also a political dimension. Aircraft carriers are visible symbols of national power. When a carrier arrives in a region, it sends a message not just to enemies but to allies as well. It reassures partners and demonstrates commitment. Smaller platforms and hidden systems do not create the same effect. In international politics, perception often matters as much as raw capability. Some analysts argue that the real future lies in a mix of systems. Instead of relying on a few massive carriers, navies may use a combination of smaller carriers, amphibious ships, unmanned vessels, and land-based air power. This approach spreads risk and complicates enemy targeting. Carriers would still exist, but they would operate differently, supported by networks of drones and autonomous systems. The United States Navy has already started moving in this direction. Experiments with unmanned aircraft on carriers are underway. Concepts like distributed maritime operations aim to make fleets harder to target. Carriers may launch fewer manned fighters and more unmanned platforms in the future. This could extend their reach while reducing risk to pilots. It is also important to consider geography. In some regions, carriers face greater threats than in others. Operating near a heavily defended coastline is far more dangerous than operating in open ocean or against weaker adversaries. Carriers may be less suitable for certain high-intensity conflicts, but still extremely useful in many other scenarios. Obsolescence is rarely absolute. Economic power plays a role as well. Only a few countries can afford to build and operate carriers. For those nations, carriers represent not just military capability, but industrial strength and technological sophistication. Abandoning carriers would mean abandoning entire industries and skill sets. This creates strong incentives to adapt rather than discard them. Critics often compare carriers to a big, slow target. But speed and survivability are relative concepts. Carriers can move faster than many realize, and they do not operate in isolation. Their defensive systems are constantly evolving. Electronic warfare, cyber disruption, and deception can all reduce the effectiveness of enemy targeting. War is not a simple exchange of missiles. The question, then, is not whether aircraft carriers are obsolete, but whether they are being used in the right way. If commanders expect carriers to operate as they did 30 or 40 years ago, they may indeed face serious risks. But if carriers are integrated into a broader, more flexible strategy, their value remains significant. History suggests that military power rarely disappears overnight. Instead, it transforms. The role of the carrier may shift from being the central strike platform to being one node in a complex network of forces. Its air wing may change, its missions may evolve, but the basic idea of a mobile sea-based airfield still has advantages that are hard to replicate. At the same time, ignoring new threats would be dangerous. Hypersonic weapons, advanced submarines, and autonomous systems are not theoretical. They are real and improving rapidly. Navies that fail to adapt will pay a heavy price. The future battlefield will punish rigidity and reward flexibility. There is also the human factor. Carriers are not just machines. They are communities of skilled professionals, pilots, engineers, sailors, and commanders trained for years to operate these complex systems. Their experience cannot be easily replaced by algorithms or autonomous platforms. Human judgment still matters, especially in uncertain and rapidly changing situations. Some argue that the psychological impact of carriers is underestimated. Knowing that a powerful strike group is nearby can influence enemy decision-making. Deterrence is not just about the ability to destroy targets, but about shaping behavior. Carriers play a role in this psychological dimension of warfare. On the other hand, relying too heavily on carriers can create blind spots. Adversaries study these platforms closely. They design strategies specifically to counter them. This means navies must avoid becoming predictable. Diversification of forces is essential. Carriers should be part of the answer, not the entire answer. When people say the aircraft carrier is obsolete, they are often reacting to dramatic changes in technology. These concerns are valid, but obsolescence implies replacement. The real question is what could truly replace a carrier's combination of mobility, flexibility, and sustained air operations. So far, no single system offers the same range of capabilities. In many ways, the debate itself is a sign of healthy military thinking. Questioning assumptions forces adaptation. It pushes innovation. If carriers were never challenged, they would stagnate. The pressure from new threats may ultimately make them more survivable and more effective. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel.